Hi, my name is Jason Gabrieli from HFM Investment Advisors in Southern New Jersey, and my unexpected hobby is I am a mummer.
Welcome to Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors, the podcast where we interview fellow financial advisors about their pursuits and pastimes beyond their professional persona, some of which may be surprising to their colleagues and clients. We're interested in what makes them tick and how their unexpected hobbies might or might not relate to their everyday lives. Here's our discussion with this week's guest. Welcome to the Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors podcast. I'm Brian Wright with Fiduciary CFO. As always, joining me virtually alongside is Joshua Walker, my partner in crime. How you doing, Joshua?
I'm really glad to be in Orlando this morning. It's a great day to be in Florida.
Yeah, lots of snow here in the Midwest and lots of snow where our guest Jason is from today, who's going to be talking to us about his unexpected hobby, being a mummer. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. I'm happy to be here. It's weird to be a guest on someone else's podcast. I like it. I dig this.
We'll try to make this as painless as possible.
Pressure's on you guys this time.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
As always. So you're a mummer. Tell the world, what
Wow.
is a mummer?
Well, so I'll begin by we are geographically located in Southern New Jersey, which our city is Philadelphia. So it's about 20 minutes west of where I'm sitting right now. And so we're Philly people. A lot of the people out in Southern New Jersey are emigrated from Philadelphia in one perspective or another. And so, we're very much a suburb of Philadelphia. And so Mummery, as it's called, is a tradition I want to say, I believe it goes back to the early 1900s. So like the 1900s. And it was really started as like a showmanship thing. But basically, what it became was now it's a very much a competitive thing. And so it has, the way I describe it to people is it's like a cheerleading competition meets Mardi Gras, meets like a marching band competition, all smashed together. That's pretty much what Mummery is. And so it's all takes place on New Year's Day. So all of this Mummery is for the New Year's Day parade in Philadelphia, which has been a very, I would say, a hallmark of Philadelphian culture for forever, going back to those early 1900s when they started this stuff. And so that's really like the high level. That said, there's way more depth than you think there would be. It goes, at the end of the day, a lot of these are individual clubs. And all the clubs are very much like social organizations. So everybody, even though it's one day a year, that we come together and do our performances, it is a whole year of, camaraderie, social engagement, and preparing, because it is competitive, and fundraising because it's expensive. So that's kind of the best overview I could give it.
So when I heard about this and when you were nominated, I had to look it up. I assumed it was just people that dressed as mummies or something, and it's not that, for those who still don't know.
Depends on your theme for the year. If you're doing an Egyptian theme, then you're dressing as a mummy. Really
Okay. So, well, then I guess I don't, because everything I looked at just looked very, elaborative dress and things. I thought maybe there's a tradition, like certain traditional garments that are worn, but it's a parade. Everything's kind of centers around the parade, right? That's where the competition, kind of like the Rose Parade is a competition of that. So this is everybody builds toward this parade, and that's the showcase. And but I guess I still don't get it.
It is a hard thing to verbalize. I do hope you guys supplement this with pictures and video, because it is I run it. I travel occasionally for business a couple times a year. We travel for fun. We meet people from all over, and occasionally it will come up. And ironically, even to describe it to somebody just outside the Philadelphia region, that just doesn't, New York, we're not far away from New York, or DC, no idea. So it is very much a regionalized, very small region thing. So it is not easy. I often struggle to explain it, but basically, there are 4 different divisions in Mummery. So there are the ones, even if you're a Philadelphian, most people, if I said I'm a mummer, they would probably think that I play an instrument, because the string bands, as they're called, are a very prominent part of the New Year's Day parade. And so they play banjos, horns, guitars, obviously, as string bands would insinuate, right? Bass stars, and we all wear very elaborate costumes. And so I think that's what you were, traditionally, what you mentioned there, Brian, is a lot of sequins, a lot of feathers, a lot of glitter. There's a lot of pageantry. And every club has a theme. So, in the string bands, each club picks their theme, and they actually parade down Broad Street in Philadelphia, and they get judged at City Hall. Some of the purists might be like, oh, at one point they weren't, but I'm pretty sure it's now still at City Hall, which is at the end of Broad Street, kind of in the middle of the city of Philadelphia. And so they make their way down. They do their performance many times along the parade route, have big sets, and they get judged at the end. And then there's the comics on the wench brigades, which are basically like the jesters almost. So they have themes also, but a lot of them tend to imbibe a lot on New Year's Day, starting very early in the morning. So there's been controversy around Mummery. You can imagine some of the themes that they've come up with are a little risque, maybe, or a little politically, challenging. And so sometimes they get the old the blacklist from the channel. They can't, but they're a big piece of it too, because there's hundreds of people in those clubs that will march. They'll take people just for the day. So you can show up at one of those clubs on New Year's Day, and they'll give you an outfit to match everybody else, and off you go.
After drinking all night, New Year's
night.
night.
Yeah, with your satchel full of beers. They literally have like satin satchels that they
don't
carry
go
around.
to sleep. You just keep the party going.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but they get judged also on their theme and their execution of the theme and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the fancies, which are they don't play instruments either. But they're huge costumes that are like on wheels. They wheel them around. Again, they also make their way down Broad Street, and they do their judging at City Hall as well. So you have the string bands, you have the comics and the wenches, and then you have your fancies. And then I am a member of the Saturnalian New Year's Association, and we are a fancy brigade. And so that's really where the comparison to a cheer competition comes from. We do our show in the Pennsylvania Convention Center, which is a block or so from City Hall. And so we moved our show inside about, the guys would hate me for this. I believe it was like 97, 98, something like that. I wasn't around back then. But we took it off the street and moved it into the convention center. And so we have, you can imagine what we're now able to build, because we don't have to push it down Broad Street. And so the sets are gigantic.
So it's not, so do you have zero participation in the parade, or do you just do the parade and then you jump into the convention center?
That's a good question. So we do 2 shows. So on New Year's Day, us, the Fancy Brigades, we do a show at 11:30 in the convention center. And then we do a show at, I think it's 5 o'clock. And so in between shows, we'll hit the street. And since it's right, a block or 2 over, and we'll go down Broad Street from City Hall down to South Philadelphia, Washington Ave. And so, we don't bring our sets or anything. We have all our costumes and all our stuff like that. But we're more just shaking hands, getting in pictures with people, and doing all that stuff in prep for our 5 o'clock show is where we get judged. So the 11:30 show is, it's where we iron out. So we practice for all these groups. We practice starting like pretty much right after the summertime. So, you'll find groups of mummers, string bands, fancy brigades like us, practicing all around the areas of South Philadelphia, under 95, parking lots, whatever, Sunday mornings. Because it's basically a choreographed dance that we're doing. And so with 80 people. And so it's called a drill. That's what we call it. We have a choreographer, the whole deal. And so, for the most part, it's definitely something that starts early on. Like I said, September usually. We start practicing like 2 days a week. And then, we make our way through. We just build sets. We have a garage where we build all the sets. We build all the pieces for our theme. And then all that gets moved into the convention center, usually a week or two before New Year's.
Your crunch time is Christmas. So this is
It
all.
is wild. So between Christmas and New Year's, it is not resting. It is you're up at the convention center building still. So we have our bay, which is huge. Like probably the bays are like 50 feet by like 150 feet deep for each club. So we have tons of sets in there, building supplies, all of our stuff. We're doing our building. All the other 9 clubs are doing their building. Last minute adjustments, special effects. It's we rent. It's like everything else. The competition is slowly ratcheted up as more and more money has gotten involved. We raise more and more money, and so we rent production equipment from production companies. It's pretty for 4 minutes for a bunch of people who are not professional performers. It's pretty involved.
So how many clubs are there in your division, or what do they call it?
Look, you're picking up on it.
We're
like a regular.
How many people? How many are you competing
Yeah.
against?
So it's 10 clubs right now. It has
Okay.
been, from what I understand, as high as 25 in years past. But a lot of them were smaller clubs. But I think that was even before we were in the convention center. And it gets harder to compete because all the other clubs have leveled up so much that to really compete, you have to have a pretty substantial, membership and all that kind of stuff.
And
so
budget,
there's 10
I'm
of us
sure.
now. Yeah. The shows, the costumes alone. We spend for 80 costumes. I think it's around $100,000. So it's when you factor it all in, I think all in our show, just us, costs it's around $250,000, something like that.
Wow.
That gets spent on the production. So you'll see when you see the video that there's a lot into it. But
And
as far
who were
as
the judges and what's at stake?
So there's nothing. Bragging rights is at stake. It used to be a monetary prize, but it was like $10,000. But now it's purely bragging rights, and the judging is very serious, as you can imagine, because a lot of people are putting a lot of time and money into this. So they actually get judges from LA and New York, Broadway, production people who are involved in live theater, Hollywood movie production, things like that, costumers, all those kind of people. So there's different categories. So you have 2 judges for it. Now these guys, if they hear this, then I'm wrong. So I say this with the greatest of all my Mummer friends. I'm not the Mummer expert. I didn't come up with this my whole life like a lot of these guys. But I believe there's 2 judges for each category. And their categories are production, which is kind of the sets and all that stuff, costume, music, and then I believe there's one for captain. And so the person who's leading us is the captain. They wear a one-of-a-kind suit, which is what we call our costume. And they, as you'll see, they stick out when you watch the videos. And they are really the ones who are the producer, if you will, too, of it. They're the one bringing together the theme and getting everybody behind and dealing with the choreographer and making sure everybody gets to drill and practices and all that kind of stuff. They're in charge.
And what was your path into Mummery? How did this happen to you?
Oh boy. All right. So I'll start with this. A lot of the people that are in these clubs, it's very family oriented. So it's a tradition in a lot of families in Philadelphia. Their dads were in it, their grandfathers were in it, their grandfather started it, whatever it is. It's very family oriented. Their kids are in it. Starting at 6 months old, they wear kid suits. And so it's very family oriented. It's for my journey was different. So my journey was, I was dating a girl in high school and then through college, and her father was in one of the very prominent clubs. Her uncle was in one of the very prominent clubs, very successful club. And so we would go every New Year's Day to the show, as a family, with her parents and her aunts and uncles and everybody. And I really loved that. I thought this was cool. Every year I was like, I'm going to do it. I never did it. And then 2012, believe it was. We went to the show, and I'm like, and going into, or excuse me, it was 2012 New Year's Day. So 2011 going into 2012. I said, I'm going to come out and do it. I convinced two of my buddies to do it with me. And we had no idea what we were getting into. No idea. Yeah, let's do it. And so, of course, we were from Jersey. We were from the other side of the bridge. So we quickly became the Jersey Boys that day. And you get voted in, behind closed doors. And it's funny. As soon as you get voted in, it's like you were there for 20 years. Everybody's where you get a nickname. It's very, very embracing. Now I realize it's just because that's 3 more people to shoulder the fundraising. But then I was like, these guys are really nice.
That's a reason. A reason to be welcoming. Yes.
That's right. But yeah, ironically enough, me and that girl broke up like the next year, so she didn't even see me. But that's and I stuck around. I've been around for a while now. This was my 12th parade. So my first parade was 2013, and then 2025 was my 12th. So, but you end up, like I said, it's a social thing, right? So you end up, building relationships with these guys. We've all gotten married, had kids, done all this stuff together. We all have little kids. So you start to build friendships with a lot of these guys, and that's a big part of it.
Okay. So you've been on the books for a while now, and I was having Christmas dinner 3 weeks ago with my family I was born into, which is a Philadelphia family, like Berwyn and Phoenixville.
Oh yeah.
And I had no clue. I was as clueless as Brian, because I guess we moved away to Indiana 30 years ago. And my dad said, oh, yeah, we got a big history with the Mummers. And I thought, what are you talking about? What is
Tell
this?
me
And my
more.
sister was able to tell us. But I try to go into these as blind as possible. I don't do any research, so I can ask really clueless questions. And so I'm going to have to follow up with my family about what the family history is. And I suspect there's a family relationship. Why do you think it's never gone beyond Philadelphia? Is it the family tie thing? Because Philadelphians, you can't get away from us. We're everywhere.
I know. Well, I'll say this. I actually thought about this. I'm surprised there's really nothing, like it doesn't get broadcast wider. And to be honest with you, it's struggled, even in Philadelphia, with getting support. Like the city of Philadelphia, it's resource intensive for the city. They put a ton of police on it. Obviously, it's a ton of people. And so blocking the streets, making sure there's presence there. Everything from infrastructure for porta potties. It's all in the city. And so there's always been rumors that, maybe the city's going to stop this. Like, who knows? There's always been this. So I think it's a tradition that is very much rooted, like I said, with the families that are big into it. I think the Philadelphia people like seeing it, but less and less with each generation, it seems like. And so I think also going outside the Philadelphia region would probably help, but I think it's a hard thing for them to even understand what the heck they're looking at. And if you don't have that family connection, I almost wonder, if that would probably help a lot, actually, if they could expand, because that would expand the audience, and make it more profitable for the stations that air it. But yeah, I think it's a lot of that family tie. If you don't have that family tie, or you didn't, your parents didn't go to it when they were living in Philly, and maybe it just doesn't carry as much. I don't know.
So you talk about fundraising. So is there like corporate backing here? Like does Kraft have a Philadelphia cream cheese like Mummers?
It's a good question.
Crew,
so you know what? The fundraising it's twofold, right? So it's us fundraising for our show, and then it's fundraising. The association has to fundraise to put the show on in the convention center. So they rent out the convention center. They have to get all of the grants, because if you've ever been to the convention center, it's a big open space, right? So they have to get the grandstands put in for like 5,000 or 6,000 people. All of the lighting and the sound production, all that stuff is paid for by the association. And so those are corporate sponsorships, yeah. So a lot of times we get local companies, so like Xfinity is a big Comcast is a big sponsor, because we have Comcast right in Center City. We have sponsorships from like the production companies that we use. We have sponsorships from the Exelon, which is a huge utility company. They have Pico Energy, which is the utility company in Philadelphia. And places like that. Also, it's worth mentioning that the demographic of people is kind of interesting. So the demographic of the other members, for a very long time, this was very blue collar, a lot of union electricians, steam fitters, plumbers, all that kind of stuff. That was heavily that for years and years and years. I've just recently, the last couple generations probably, you're starting to get more white collar people because the kids of these people are doing other things, right? So like ironically, one of the guys on my member, he's like a director of fixed income at BlackRock. So like there's all these. I have a bunch of teachers are in our club now. We have lawyer. We have all these different people in our club that are different than that, but it's still very heavily blue collar, which is kind of interesting because then their unions also will sponsor, and a lot of the big contracting companies in the city of Philadelphia will sponsor. But also it's interesting because the people who really do it, right? So we have like every club or any organization, there's a handful of people that get everything, right? So we all pitch in, but there are a handful of guys that do a lion's share of the work. And it's interesting because when you see, again, the videos, pictures, whatever you guys share, the creativity that goes in, I don't have a shred of creativity, not even a little bit, but the creativity that goes into this, the vision, and it's amazing. And these guys, for the most part, are union pipe fitters, electricians. They're all my friends, right? But I think a lot of it has to do with like their day-to-day job is very hands-on, get the job done, move on. There's not a lot of creativity. This is like a creative outlet for these guys. And I always kid, I'm like, if you guys weren't doing this, you guys would be running businesses because the amount of energy and motive it takes to get everybody together on the same page, share the vision, get it done, raise the money. So I'm like, this is running a business. It's interesting to see, that how that kind of dichotomy kind of emerged a little bit. But yeah,
you say it's interesting, but we've probably done like 30 of these podcast interviews now. Yeah. I would guess in 27 of them, that aspect of I have this part of my job that's very, very details, rules oriented procedures. And then I have this other aspect that's completely creative and filled with art and expression. And lurking behind Brian is a Billy Madison pinball machine that's very mechanical, electrical engineering, but art and just financial planners over and over and over again. We hear the exact same thing. It's exactly what you said.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that definitely has an element to it. It's a little bit, and it's even like, if you played sports growing up, identity piece where you have that social group, that you have that you're all, like a team effort. And you lose that as you grow up if you're not continuing to be in team sports, which most adults are not. And this really fills that gap because like even days in, we're getting motivational texts from the captain. We're getting, we're this close because this is what we need to do. Even the day of, it's all, this is what we need. We need to execute. We need to, everybody, the adrenaline when you hit the floor and you're going out, even if you have a small part, like as I've gotten older and I have kids of my own, I live across the bridge. I'm not right in the neighborhood. I'm less involved than I was. And so, I realize I can't come to drill twice a week for 3 months. And so they adjust. They give you a smaller part. They give you, and I show up in some of the other ways. Like I'm very mechanically inclined guy, I would say. And I'm good with electronics, stuff like that. So I did all the effects for our show. For the front, I was able to hammer that out in the week that we were in the convention center. So stuff like that. And financially, obviously, they, the president, who's a different person than the captain, they rely on the handful of guys that have financial background to help and say, what should we be doing? Like right now, we're going through the process of, maybe getting a little bit more legal legitimacy as an organization. And so I have contacts with attorneys, and I was able to kind of make that. So everybody contributes, the way that they can. But it's like that team sport mentality that you miss out on as an adult, I think.
So when you talk about the themes, is it true independence from group to group of what the theme's going to be, or is there like an overarching theme that like the parade has that kind of you're within like those parameters you have to play within?
So no, it's very regimented. So I don't know how the other divisions work, but for the Fancy Brigade Association, starting in like February, you pick, and I'm going to butcher this too. I believe there's a meeting where you pick your position, because there's a thought that which order you go in has some dictation on whether the judges are more apt to award more points or less points, or who knows if there's anything to that.
Sure,
but there is a random order pick, right? So they do that, I believe, in February. They do the order pick, the run of show, who's going to go in what order.
And so then, 11 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
The
and then
order.
In March, they do the theme the theme picking. So what they do is once as a member, if I had even a shred of creativity and I had an idea for a theme, I could go to the theme committee and I could say, look, and they present. So we have half a dozen guys every year who will come up with themes, and they come up with a whole presentation. This is the vision. This is what I see. This is the type of music that I think we could have. And they present it to, I believe it's the theme committee or the executive committee. I forget. And they choose three. So they have to prioritize them, right? And then going into the theme selection at the association, you want to have three, because if you don't go first and your first one gets picked by somebody else, you want to have a second and a third. And I believe they go in the order of the March order. So as far as who gets to pick their team, I believe. It might be random, but I think it goes to the March order. So that's how they do it. That way there's no crossover year to year.
So can you are these like licensed themes, or is it more generic? Like, can you do like, we're going to do Star Wars this year, or is it like, no, we're going to do space. We're going to do space this year.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're a generic theme with a more specific tilt. So like, for instance, this year ours was magic. That was like the overall theme. But then the specific was like magic in motion. And it was a lot of like sleight of hand. Like it was a lot of, illusions. And trying to with effects. That was like the objective. And so some are more story heavy than others. Specifically, again, Fancy Brigade Association. So we did 2017. We did Gangs in New York. It's one of my favorite themes. And it told the story. I mean, our sets were very elaborate. It was like movie sets. And it went through the story of the gang, like the movie, all the way from start to finish. You kind of follow it. So it wasn't just, colonial or whatever. It was very specific. So it depends. And then one year we did generic Alien, I think, and that didn't do so well. Didn't really have a story. But yeah, we've done Disney, which isn't, because there's no licensing involved. We borrowed it.
Yeah. You're firmly planted in the artistic end of the copyright pool, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. But yeah, so it really depends on the year. And I'll say these clubs have come up with some really interesting. You see some of the same things year to year, but then different takes, on how it works. And how you take that voodoo theme or that Chinese theme or whatever it is.
So I would assume with any sort of competition, especially when you're dealing with family and multi-generations, there's probably some rivals out there, people you want to beat and that want to beat you.
So it's funny that you say that, because I want to say it was, I think it was 2020, New Year's 2020. Barstool was coming to, I think it was before they made the move to Philly as a headquarters, but they were kind of getting more involved in Philly. And they did a really cool, it was like a documentary. It was like a half hour, 40 minutes long. It was good. I'll send you guys the link if I can get it. And so they profiled the Mummers, right? And they chose the Fancy Brigades and what they made out to be a rivalry. The Shooting Stars and the Vikings. Now the Vikings have won.
Sharks and Jets, right?
Yeah. And so it was, the whole documentary is basically from the sides of the Vikings and the Shooting Stars. Almost like one of them has to win, right? The irony was we won. And so that was our first place finish, I think, since like 1986. So it was a huge upset. We had slowly been getting better from like right about when I got in the club. I'm not taking credit, but causation, I don't know. And so they had us. We had a lot more better talent in with the leadership, I think, in like 2012, and we started getting third places. We started getting things we hadn't seen. We used to be like a 7th, 8th, 9th place club for years. And so we started getting better. And then we hit 2020. So there are some rivalries and stuff, but they've started to break up because it really depends on, the year and what the membership brings and how the club shows up. But like the Vikings they're very, very successful club. They've won 6 first places in like the last 12, 15 years. So they're pretty good. And I always kid with my friends in my club, because we're ethnically down in South Philadelphia. There's different like Polish, Irish, Italian, all this. And so I'm Italian. Most of the people in the club are Polish, Irish, tournament. And so the Vikings are almost 100% Italian club. So when they were winning all the time, I'm like, guys, I think I joined the wrong club. I gotta go over here, and get some plaques. But yeah, there's always a little bit of rivalry there.
Yeah, what is the hardware? Like, what do you take? What do you take home? Does everybody get something, or is it just you have
plaques.
a trophy case?
So it's
somewhere?
all so we have them in our clubhouse. Everybody's clubhouse, on 2nd Street in South. For the most part, they're all on 2nd Street in South Philadelphia. And so I almost skipped the best part. So there's the competition that happens the whole day of New Year's Day, right? And so you have the string bands, you have the comics, you have the fancies, and you have us. And so I mentioned the comics and the wenches, they like to have a good time, starting very early. But for the rest of us, it's a lot going into this show. So we want to keep it on the straight and narrow, right? Until we're done. And then at 7:30-ish, show's
then
done.
It's go time.
When it's go time. Then we all get on buses from the convention center, and we go all the way back down to 2nd Street in South Philadelphia, and basically parade down 2nd Street all the way back to our respective clubhouses. And so that's where the Mardi Gras comparison I gave you comes in, because now there's just, the streets are filled with people. Everybody comes from the parade down to there, party, have a good time, squeeze the most amount we can out of New Year's. And that's
brought to you by Yingling.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's where Miller Lite. Miller Lite and Twisted Tea Light are like, there was a hotbed. There's this joke meme going around the clubs of like a heat map of where they sell Twisted Tea Light, which is actually a thing. And it's just a giant red square on South Philadelphia, because I think that's the only place that sells it. But they love it. And so that's where we all have big sound trucks, with big speakers and DJs and going down the street, very Mardi Gras-esque, and just having a good time. And that's when we find out the results. So they change a little bit every year. This year, they send a text out to all the captains and say, confirm that you're ready to receive the results. And once everybody says, yes, I'm ready, they call the top 3 clubs, and then everybody else finds out in text lines. And so it tends to be right around, it's like 9:45 usually. And so everybody's kind of watching the captain, waiting for like a reaction before they get on the mic. So
not a formal award ceremony or anything where
there is later.
Okay.
So in, I think, March, they do we do our own banquet. The clubs do their own banquets for like, Rookie of the Year and all that kind of stuff. But then the association does a banquet where you get your hardware to take back to the club. Your captain, like our captain's won first place several times. He's very good. And then unfortunately this year we got 6th. A little disappointing. But over the last 5 years we've had 2 first places, so can't complain too much. But yeah, it was a little disappointing for sure.
You touched on demographics a little. How old are the oldest participants? Are your kids in it? And what's the male-female balance over time?
Well, so you guys have to promise me you're not going to cancel us. But
we do no canceling. We'll interview literally anyone.
So
our audience may cancel.
The Mummers are very a little bit of a backwards organization when it comes to gender equality, and so there's still many clubs that are men only. Our club we allow females, but it's limited to the number of males. So and they're not true voting members. They only wear suit. They wear an out and dance with us. It's just a very old school mentality. This is what it is. They've changed incrementally over time, but it's part of the warts and all that you take with it. That said, demographically age-wise, runs the gamut. I mean, it's everything from, like I said, little kids. People have their little kids in it. I have not yet had my little kids in it just because they don't love loud noises and big crowds. So it's not a great environment for that. My older one, he's 5. My younger one, he's more the wild man. So I think he's 3. So he might be more into it.
Well, it's a good thing you have sons, not daughters.
I know. Well, the crazy thing, like we have our club, also ultimately ends up taking a lot of the daughters of people that are in the clubs that are all men. So we benefit from that because, I'll say, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, the females definitely help our dancing quite a bit. So, our drill is always on point. We have some good male dancers too, but the females definitely help for sure. And so the age, like I said, kind of runs the gamut. We have very old. We have our oldest member was this guy Richie Skate. We just nominated the building in his name. But he's like he was 88, I think 89. So some people stick around for a while. That said, in our club at least, very median age group would be like early 30s to like maybe mid 40s, late 40s. That's kind of the age range. Then a lot of guys' dads are in it still, and they help out with a lot of it. They don't dance, but they do a lot of that, making the trains run on time and making sure we have food to eat and beer to drink and all that fun stuff.
Is there opportunities, as you've been doing this 10, 15 years, where you've had people you've gotten to know that discovered, hey, you're a financial planner, and that's leads to client relationships and referrals? And on the flip side, the people that you work with professionally, and you say, hey, you got New Year's plans, come on down. I got a job for you.
So on the first one, yeah, I have a handful of clients that have come from the club. But just due to the fact that most of them are union guys, all their retirement is pretty much tied up in the union. Everything's the unions take pretty good care of their people. They have pensions. They have, they're pretty, I'll help. They'll ask me stuff, then I'm happy to, talk to them. But, for the most part, my ideal clients I look for are mostly business owners. So we have a nice platform. We run portfolios alongside our Schwab portfolios in Betterment. And so it's very easy for people to open accounts. And so they'll ask me like, hey, I want to do an account for my kid, or I want to do I'll help you out. Let's because I want to make sure they don't get, whatever they shouldn't be buying from somebody else. And so And so I'm happy to help. So I think I have maybe 3 or 4 of my members that have come across like that, but I've had countless conversations. So it's a lot about business though. These guys want to start businesses or want to do that. So obviously I'm a partner in my firm, and then my partner and I have a few other businesses. So I've had a lot of experience just trying stuff and how to run a business and work a business. So I help with that stuff too.
Do most of your clients or all of your clients know that you do this? I mean, it's probably not unexpected if you're from Philly, as you would be like if you find out you were in Texas. You're like, oh, hey, I do this on New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day.
Fly to Philadelphia.
Right.
Put on my sequins of feathers.
Right.
But so most of them, it comes up. It's one of those, I also literally just gave this up, but I DJ'd weddings for like 20 years. And so I also did that. So they kid that I'm like the most interesting man in the world because I have all these little things that people learn about me. And they're like, you do what? I also do that. So that comes up. They definitely know. And then we'll post about it on our social media here and there. I don't remember if we did it this year or not, but my suit, Happy New Year, all that kind of stuff. So I think they have an idea. Definitely have a clue.
The feather boa you keep in your office probably gives it away, right?
Yeah. There's a whole running joke in the mumming community, if you will, that glittering is a verb. Like we have to glitter the sets once they're done. And they're like literally just throwing glitter and spray adhesive on everything. And so you end up with glitter. Never. I've glittered my car till like June. Like there's glitter everywhere. All the time. And so it's definitely glitter my hair. Yeah, glitter everywhere. So it's an interesting hobby. Definitely an interesting hobby.
Conversation starter, if nothing else.
Oh, without a doubt. What do you do?
I spend my January 1st doing e-money reports, archiving 1231 values for our clients, but you do you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, over the last dozens years you've been doing this, are there any special memories, not just the victories, but special memories that you're going to take with you and tell your grandkids about someday when the mummers are no longer remembered?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, at the end of the day, just being accepted so quickly, into an organization, I feel like is really surprising. Into this, that just because you think like purely stereotypically, bunch of South Philly blue collar guys, like they're not going to accept, it was nothing like that. It was really, it really that really kind of left it was a surprise even to this day. Because they all grew up together, a lot of these guys. They went to elementary school together. They know each other. They're all friends, And so to be an outsider and to be accepted like that is pretty cool. And then it's just those weeks in the convention center where everybody just comes together, man. It's a lot. Very fortunate. My spouse is very, very accepting of it. She gets into it She takes the kids to the show. They all have shirts and stuff. Days where people are hanging out, just trying to recharge before the new year, and I'm going to the convention center 8 hours a day.
So there's merch. So it sounds like there's merch then. Your kids have shirts.
Yeah, it's like being in a sport, man.
Yeah.
Every couple weeks, I'm doing an order for these. Again, creativity. I don't know where these guys come up with stuff. This new shirt design, this new hat design. I'm taking orders for Venmo me $20. Everybody's got jackets. I should have wore it. We all have our jackets, hats, long sleeve. You name it. The shorts, you name it. They got it all. Beanies with the little thing on top. They got everything. Scarves. Everything. It's like being on a sports team with a bunch of grown-up adults who have disposable income.
What was your wife's exposure to Mummery before you? Did she come from a family, or did she?
No,
were you the introduction?
She is, like me. Her family is her mom was from Boston, but her dad was a Philadelphia native that came out to New Jersey. So she was aware of it, and they didn't grow up going to it or anything that I know of. But she was very much aware of it and embraced it as soon as I kind of got into it. Once we started dating and everything. And so it wasn't too much of a big sell there. Ironically, now the people that come to the show in person are a lot of her mom's family from Boston, because they're like, "What is this?" Like this past time, I got like 7 or 8 tickets because three of her aunts came, her cousin, a handful of other people. So they loved it. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, I know. And then you start to realize when you're there, it doesn't set in that these are all just regular people putting this show on. You get lost in the production, and it seems like a show you would go see.
Thinking back to when you were first getting involved, you and your Jersey boy buddies, crossing the river, getting involved. What words of wisdom would you share with that young fella now that you know what you know?
Man, that's a good question. What words of wisdom would I share? Would say just to
Embrace the glitter.
Yeah, exactly. Just to remind myself that everybody contributes in different ways. Because a lot of times, just my personality is, if I'm in something, I want to be in 110%. That's the way I am, right? And so as I've stepped back a little bit since I've had kids and stuff, I see all the work these guys are doing, and they're sending out texts like, "We need help in the garage." They know I can't make it, right? And they know I can, but they have kids too, and they have their own. It's like I always feel like a little, like I'm slacking. And so what the week of, or the 2 weeks of, that's when I know I kind of ramp it up and I'm going it a lot more active. And I know that's needed. And even the president being able to talk to me about business stuff or leadership stuff, because he's a union steam fitter. He doesn't get leadership training. And I don't have leadership training, but I've got real experience, right? But like, he'll ask me, like, how should I was teaching him to like delegate. Like, you have to try to do everything himself. Typical small business owner, right? And I'm like, no, you got to delegate. You got to form committees. And so like realizing that and then he sent us a nice text, me and another guy he gets help from in that department about, I really appreciate all you guys have done to coach me up and all. So it's like everybody give myself a little break, I guess.
Sure.
Especially as I age.
If people wanted to learn more about it, you mentioned there's a big old documentary and there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. What would be the best angle into Mummery in general, and then your division as well?
Wikipedia actually has a decent amount of stuff on it, because I was trying to put together like how am I going to explain this to you guys? And so I got some stuff from there. But YouTube's the best because you can see it. You got to see it, because there's really no way to explain. So for you guys, even if you look at the Fancy Brigade Association YouTube, you will find all of the videos I was talking about. Well, us, Saturnalian, and then everybody else. It's a good way to kill a half hour. But yeah, that's you got to see it. Otherwise it's hard to describe. All right. If you get a chance, if you find yourself in Philadelphia, any of your listeners here on New Year's or thereabouts, it's a good time. Go down to Broad Street, see all the string bands. Our show, shameless plug. I think the tickets are like $30, something like that. And it is 3 hours of, I say, if you add it up between all the clubs, probably a $2.5 million production. And it's a pretty good show. It's pretty engaging, especially if you have little kids. It's fun.
And if somebody wanted to not just learn, but sign me up.
Yeah.
Go knocking on doors on 2nd Avenue.
Yeah. They'll take you. This is the time of year you want to get in. So you get a full year of selling tickets. Very exciting. And so That's the, oh, sorry about that. Talking with my hands as an Italian that I am. I would say reach out, feel free to reach out to me if you guys want to share my contact information. I'd be happy to take an email and point you in the right direction.
And what is the best place to find you professionally and the firm that you work if people wanted to do that?
Sure. So our website is HFM, H is in, wait, F is in Frank, M is in Mary, advisors.com. And we are, like I said, we work with clients all over the country, like many of you guys do, I'm sure. But we're mostly located in the Philadelphia area.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Brian, I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm sure it's just scratching the surface, but I felt like we've had a good advocate for Mummery here and what's going on. You have any closing questions for our guest, Jason?
No, this is really interesting. I didn't know anything about Mummery, and now I know a lot more about Mummery, and I'm looking forward to checking out what you send us, and we'll, as I said earlier, we'll put those in post-production so the folks that are watching on YouTube can check that out. If you're listening to this episode on Spotify or Apple, just go check out the video. It'll be colorful, I'm sure.
Definitely, that's a good way to put it.
But yeah, Jason, thank you very much for coming on the show. This is really interesting, and we appreciate you, and look forward to keeping in touch. And,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Looking forward to future shows and pictures from future years.
Great. Take it easy.
Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors is brought to you by Fiduciary CFO, forward-thinking tax and planning solutions for business owners, like RIA firms and their business owner clientele. The opinions of Brian, Joshua, and their guests are for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. You should know better than to take any of this content seriously. Thanks for being a fan of the show. If you were listening and thought to yourself, hey, I know somebody they need to have on the show, you can do something about that. Go to unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate and tell us who they are and what they do that's so interesting and unexpected. If we agree, we'll send them an invitation and we'll hope they say yes. Now it's unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate.